Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm really grateful you having me on.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. So, yeah, super excited for this episode and talk more about how we can help each other and also like a self-help the topic we're going to talk about more into it. And also you're going to give some tips and tricks how to start launch their own book if anyone wants to launch their book. So before we get into all of these, I'd love to know more about you, like how you go into like a book launching business and helping other entrepreneurs or business owners, or could be someone else like wants to share their story, their journey. And how did you come across with the idea?
Oh, well, I moved to New York when I was fairly young to become an actress. And at some point, I lost interest in it. I hated the business.
Yeah,
And I felt a bit adrift. I had always been a writer, even when I was a kid.
yeah.
Started writing poems when I was about 6 years old. And I think I won my first writing award when I was 10.
Wow.
So it was always something I loved to
Yeah.
do. I was the person who loved to write book reports, and everybody hated me because I actually liked it.
Hmm.
Um, and I wasn't really sure what to do. I kind of wanted to get into magazine writing somehow, and I didn't really know how, and I didn't really have the confidence, I don't think.
Right.
So I was working in offices, and then a friend of mine got a job as a senior editor at a fairly big publisher,
Hmm.
and she hired me to write a short book. And she kind of lit a fire under my bottom, as I
Right.
say. And so I wrote that first one, and then they liked it. They hired me to write another one. Ideas that they were generating in house in the publishing company,
Mm.
and then they hired me to write one about hummingbirds, which was something that I loved because I'm a bird watcher
Yeah.
and I take pictures of them, and so that was a book that I loved writing, and that one did very well. So then they hired me to write more. So I thought, okay, maybe this writing thing is something I can actually do. So I put up a website. I started to, put a profile up on a couple of those websites that match up people who need writers with writers or, other kinds of freelancers.
Yeah.
And I started generating work. And the next thing I knew, it was pretty good. And I thought, I think I can maybe quit my job and
Mm.
try to do this in offices, some to supplement my income a little bit. And this was 17 years ago, as of
Wow.
July 1st. And I have never stepped back into an office since that day. And I have been able to make a living as a writer, and it's grown and grown and grown to the point that it's a very good living now, where I'm making quite a lot more than I ever made in an office as an employee. I
Yeah.
set my own hours. I go on vacation when I want to. I take a day off when I want to, within reason. Obviously, I have
Yeah.
deadlines to meet, but I have a lot of freedom. I commute from my bedroom to my living room.
Hmm.
So in the pandemic, I wasn't affected because I was already working from home.
Yeah.
So I was very grateful that I already had that set up when COVID hit. And it has just grown beyond my wildest expectations. In the beginning, I was writing lots of different things like website copy, press releases,
Yeah.
different kinds of things. And then somebody called me one day because I had already written the books under my own name.
Right.
Found my website. They called me one day and asked me to ghostwrite a book for them. And I thought, okay. And I charged him a ridiculously small amount. I mean, now I know.
Yeah.
At the time, I had no idea. But that was my first book. And then somebody else contacted me about writing a book for them. And
Hmm.
this person had a contract with a big publisher.
Okay.
And she hired, I don't know, I think 4 or 5 different writers to do a single chapter for her.
Right.
And she chose me, which was nice. So I wrote the whole book, and that was published by a big publisher. And then she recommended me to somebody else. And I've worked with that person on several books.
Hmm.
And then it just spiraled from
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, I was writing books for my favorite publisher, as a ghostwriter, not with my name on the cover, but as a ghostwriter. And these were the books I used to read. And so now I'm writing those books, which has been a really neat trajectory.
Yeah.
And I did all this a bit later in life. So I sort of reinvented myself
Mm-hmm.
at a time when I think a lot of people feel like you can't do it. It's too late.
It's
So
true.
I just want people to know it's not too late. You can
Get
do
started
it
anytime.
start
Yeah.
all over, because I did it. And like I said, it's the success of it is really beyond my wildest expectations. I'm so enormously grateful for how it's gone.
Yeah.
I never would have predicted it in the beginning. So
That's great journey you had. Nearly 2 decades of work, right? In the same space.
yeah, yeah, almost now, getting close to the 20-year mark.
Yeah.
As a full-time person, I was starting to write the books more than 20 years ago now.
Wow.
But as a full-time person working from home,
Yeah.
that's getting close to the 20 years. So, but I've been in the book industry now for more than 20. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Lot of experiences. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about self-help. So when we had like initial conversation before, like you wanted to talk more about self-help. So what does it actually mean by self-help?
Well, in the book industry, self-help really just means any book that teaches something,
Hmm.
as opposed to a book that tells a story like a memoir or fiction.
Right.
So it's really very broad in the book industry, but I think most people tend to think of it as, rather than a business book
Yeah.
that's self-help, or teaching you about leadership or something like that. I think most people think of self-help as personal development
Mm.
and, feeling better within yourself. It has to do with mental health and spiritual health and and you know self-confidence and loving yourself and
Yeah.
self-care, treating yourself right. And I loved reading those books, so now I love writing those books and working with people. And can I say something about what ghostwriting really is, because I think a lot of
Yeah,
people
sure. Yeah.
misunderstand that.
Yeah.
you know um, Ghostwriting doesn't mean that the book is mine. The
Right.
book is still the book of the person whose name is on the cover.
Hmm.
So what people don't realize, I think, is that writing a book requires knowledge of how to structure it so that it's
Yeah.
clear and it has a flow and people can understand the information. And it's different from writing a paper in school, or even an article, because it's so much longer. And I've spent a lot of years honing that craft of
Hmm.
how to study PhD in psychology, and has been on the Today Show and all kinds of shows. They're absolutely brilliant, but they still don't have the skill that I have, which is putting a book together.
Yeah.
So we marry their expertise with my expertise in order to make sure that their knowledge gets presented in the best way possible. So that's really what ghostwriting is. And some of these people can't write very well, even as brilliant as they are. They just don't have the ability to put sentences together well.
Right.
So, some of them can put sentences together, but again,
Yeah.
that's very different from putting a whole book together. So
Yeah.
I just want people to know that there's nothing fraudulent about ghostwriting whatsoever.
Hmm. So it's basically like some people like myself, I'm not good at writing and I don't know how to put everything together. Probably my grammar not that great. Probably the way I'm gonna say stuff is not gonna be that great. So it's basically a person like yourself comes in and just help me write the book. So you are writing in everything and you're taking my own story and putting in the book, right?
Exactly. I'm just helping to shape it
Yeah.
in a form that's going to present you in the best possible way.
Yeah.
But it's still your story or your information
Yeah.
that I'm imparting. And I may occasionally have an idea and say, hey, what about this? What do you think? Does that fit with what you do? But it's still their stuff. And I won't do any kind of book that's otherwise.
Mm.
If somebody were to come to me and say, hey, can you write a book on this subject without me? I say no, because then I'll just put my own name on it. Then it's
Yeah.
my book and not yours. It needs to be their book. But it's very gratifying to be able to help people to do that,
Right.
because it's a lot to expect some own expertise and also my expertise.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like why someone should write their book or like thinking
Yeah.
about like launching their own book. How does it actually benefit? Like there is so many content out there. Like if someone can tell their story probably in a video format, or like on a podcast, or like a different kind of things out there right now. So why someone can consider like writing their book, probably the idea they have or their biography or like their story they wanted to share with the world. So do you think it is the best medium to like writing the story, or like they wanna write something?
Well, I think it depends on the person.
Hmm.
If your story, if you have a lot of story, a long story,
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to do in a video, you know, or to get people to watch a series of videos. If you try to do it in a series, I think that can be difficult. But you can get people to read a whole book, you
Yeah.
know. So, you know, if you want to convey a story that's fairly short, maybe video is the best thing for you. And it
Hmm.
also, I think, depends on your audience. I
Yeah.
think if you have a younger audience, video might be better if your story is and if your story is short. If you have an older audience, I think a book is very helpful. You
Right.
can make you can probably make more money with a book, although books don't really make you that much money, generally speaking. It's more about what you can use the book to leverage.
Mm,
So if you can use it to leverage speaking engagements or interviews or things that are going to help you sell something on the back end, like if you're a life coach, for example,
yeah.
and you want to sell um, an online course to people to for self-development,
Yeah.
then a book can be a very good way to do that, to sell
Right.
that course. So it really varies, but um, I think if you're a reasonably good writer, you can write it yourself. I think it really helps to hire a book coach, which I also do,
Hmm.
so that you have somebody giving you input from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I have so many people come to me and they've spent years writing their book and it really needs to be redone. And
Right.
it's so sad when that happens, you know, because they've put so much work into it that if they
Yeah.
had just hired a coach in the beginning, then they would have been given enough direction
Yeah.
then that it would be in good shape when they're done. Then they just need to hire an editor to fine tune it for them, you know,
Mm.
rather than an editor to completely to professional standard, because you want your book, whether you're self-publishing or not, to be as good as the books that are out there from Penguin Random House and publishers like that, you know.
Yeah.
So whether you're writing your story or whether you're writing about your expertise and you're teaching people self-help kinds of things, I definitely recommend that you get professional help if you can at all afford it.
Hmm.
I mean, even just 1 hour with a book coach can
Yeah.
really, really help you and put you on a good path in the right direction so that you don't end up with that horrible news that it needs to be completely overhauled, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a really rewarding thing for people to do, especially if you have something to sell, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah. It's also like you mentioned on the videos, like you can have like so many things on the video and it costly. Like if someone want to make a movie out of your life or something, that gonna cost you millions, right? In order to put everything together. But if it's entrepreneurs or you had like some kind of journey you had, and you can put through on a few $1,000s into the book, and you can make a book with your autobiography or like your journey you had, and you can share it through the world rather than like making the whole movie and costing millions for dollars in terms of where the things are. And we often see that. So let's say someone wants to write a book and they're thinking about a book and they're on the fence. What's the first step they need to take in order to get going or get started on their book journey?
I think probably if they're unsure if their book idea is going to work,
Hmm.
if they feel like I don't know if this is a good idea, if I need to change the idea, then I think it is about hiring a book coach. You know, hire a book coach for a half an hour, have a session, discuss the idea with them, get their input as
Yeah.
to how valid it is, and they can help you to fine tune it, you know, so that it's going to be um, good for the marketplace, basically. And like I said, set you on the right path.
Right.
And then if you feel like you need more help and you can afford it, then hire them to help you as you're writing. They can read over some things and give you some more direction as you're writing, so that you can feel as you're going that you're still on the good path and you aren't veering off somewhere that isn't going to be good. Now, if you do want to hire a ghostwriter, it is a 5-figure situation for a ghostwriter. If you want to write it yourself and hire an editor, then often you can do that for 4 figures. It isn't cheap. It isn't cheap to write a book, especially then if you want to market it and hire somebody to help you with that. But it is a lot cheaper than making a film. There's definitely that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also is a good investment if you are trying to sell something off the back end, or you want to launch yourself as a speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
money that way. It's a very good investment.
Right. Helping your personal brand. Like
I'm sorry, say that again.
So I'm saying it helps on a personal brand if someone wants to build their personal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they can like and trust you.
Yes,
like,
it's a very good tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly why you need to do it right. Because if you just write a book off the cuff and put it out there, then your personal brand can get damaged from that.
Yeah.
If it's not well done, it has lots of typos or isn't clear, and you get bad reviews on Amazon. I mean, everybody gets a couple of bad reviews on Amazon, no matter how good their book is, but you don't want a lot of those.
It's true.
Because it's gonna really harm your brand, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
So
everyone know expert on writing books because they expert on their gig. Probably a business owner could be they expert on running their business, or if it's like a life coaches, they expert on like helping solve the problem of the individual, their clients, and they haven't done something like that. They probably have the great information like how to dealing with the depression, anxiety, but not actually putting together in pieces like writing everything from publishing, editing. There is so many things going on. So if you don't mind, can you share a little bit of steps what they need in order to like launch a book, from like if someone wanted to self-publishing or someone hired their ghostwriter, they write, say, edit it, what kind of steps there is involved so they can the idea?
Yeah, well, there are different ways you can self-publish. I mean, if you want to publish with a traditional publisher, like the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Then if you're writing self-help, you have to write what we call a book proposal, which is an entire document in and of itself. It's a lot of work. And it usually ends up being about 50 to 75 pages by itself. And only 20 pages of that are from the book. Right. So most it's like a business plan for your book, because you're trying then to sell your book to a literary agent who then tries to sell your book to a publisher. Mm-hmm. Then if you're lucky, you get a contract from a publisher and they give you a certain amount of money to write your book. And then they put it out. Now with traditional publishing, your book won't come out for a year or two. So it's a long process. Yeah. And a lot of people who even have, like a big following on social media so that publishers are interested in them, still want to self-publish because they don't want to wait. Right. It takes too long for traditional publishers to get it out there, and they've got something they want to sell or whatever. They don't want to wait 2 years, So they self-publish. Now, if you're self-publishing, you can hire a publisher to help you. There's something called hybrid publishing now, which is still self-publishing, So you give the publisher money to publish it, but then that publisher also takes a lot of royalties from you. So you don't make as much money from each sale. So there's nothing wrong with hybrid publishing. It's not a racket or anything. I know a lot of people who run those companies, and they're lovely people. But I generally suggest to people to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And I have a self-publishing checklist that I give to my clients and in my Facebook group. And basically, you just hire a cover designer, which you can hire very cheaply these days. Yeah. There are people who are doing great cover designs. You just want to make sure the cover is really good. Yeah. Very important, because I can tell a lot of the time which covers are self-published. Yeah. So You want to be able to fool me. And then you hire somebody to do the internal design, which we used to call typesetting.
Yeah.
Also not very expensive to do.
Mhm.
And then they can help you get it up on Amazon. You have to buy what we call an ISBN number, which is, the number at the top of the barcode on the
Yeah.
back cover. You have to buy that. It's not very expensive. And then you really need to spend money on marketing if you want to sell them. So
Right.
I always tell people, spend your money on either a ghostwriter or editor and on your marketing, not on a hybrid publisher.
Yeah.
That's my belief. You'll find people who differ, but that's my belief, because that's really the quality of the product and
Mhm.
then making sure people know it's there.
Yeah.
Those are, I think, the two most important things.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And it's a one lifetime investment, right? You writing something and it's going to be there for you long term. You're gonna be known for the book. Sometime you don't know, like a could be bestseller in the ranking on Amazon or like wherever the platform there is, or from your website, and we can double or triple your business on the same investment. Also, you can be proud of yourself as an author, like you got something you can leave behind for your children and grandchildren, and they can read. And there's
Yeah.
just so many things out there, right? And they'll want
Yeah,
to stay.
it's very much a legacy kind of a thing to
Yeah.
do. And it really is gratifying. I mean, if you look at my Instagram feed, I'm all about encouraging people to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you don't want to, don't do it. But if you feel that urge to do it, I feel like there's a reason why you have that urge, and that it's important to get past the fears and do what you can to make it happen. You
Mhm.
know, um, even if it doesn't have the kind of success that you want it to have,
Yeah.
it is a big accomplishment.
It's
You
true.
know, and you're a different person when you're done than the
Right.
person who started it. There's no question. It's a whole self-help, self-development process in and of itself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Melanie, we're coming end of this podcast. So those who's listening, if anyone wants to launch a book or need some kind of advice and guidance, what's the best place to find you?
Best place to find me is on my website, which is melanievotaw.com. Or you can find me on Instagram, Melanie, and then the last name is V as in Victor, O T as in Tom, AW, or my Facebook group, which is Finish Your Book with Melanie Votaw. There's a lot of information in there
Yeah.
that can be helpful to people.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So yeah, I appreciate your time today and coming to this podcast episode and giving the valuable lesson and teaching us like how to launch a book. So that was great. So I wish you best of luck with your business and your career and your life. And thank you so much again.
Thank you, you too. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So that's it,
Bye.
guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. So you know how to find Melanie. Go check out our website and follow her on the social media and on Facebook as well. And if you want to reach out on a launch a bot and wants to get more advice on that, just reach out to her. So till then, talk to you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.